All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming out here today to hear how we're progressing on the issue of homelessness in our community, something that is challenging to everybody and concerning to everybody as well. It's been interesting. We sometimes get praise and sometimes we get grief when we talk about our city value of compassion. And one of the reasons why we keep saying it is because it's a goal that we strive to reach every day. It's something not just my team and I work on every day. I can tell you it's something that these folks up here on the stage are all about as well. And when you think about how we've tried to bring compassion to life in our city, and we define it as respect for each and every citizen so their human potential is flourishing, thriving. And so there's all kinds of examples of it. We created our annual Give a Day week of service. We just recently closed out a major program with Toys for Tots that I saw this afternoon with giveaways going on at Hotel Louisville. Those are some of our holiday programs. Of course, we support our Compassionate Schools project, which is teaching our youngest citizens how to better care for themselves and people around them as well. But at the same time, I think it's really important to acknowledge that becoming an even more compassionate city is an aspirational goal. It shouldn't be a word that people use against each other for some reason when we fall short of what we're trying to do. But it is a standard that we set for ourselves, and we expect two things from our citizens. One, we expect our citizens to hold us to this standard, but then we also expect citizens to hold each of us to that standard as well, and then help us to reach it. I mean, it is easy to be critical of folks. The folks behind me up here are people that are actually stepping up and doing something about it. And then there's thousands of other people that are doing that in the community. So that's what we ask when people in any issue want to be critical, is to say, but here's how I want to help, because that's how you build great cities. And that means that when we can improve as a city or any of our organizations, we acknowledge that we can improve, and we learn from any shortcomings that have taken place, and then we make improvements in our processes and our training so we can move forward together. That's how good teams work, regardless of what it is, what the issue is. So first I want to thank all of the people helping with our homeless services here in the community. When I talk to other mayors and other cities about the challenges that they have with their homeless population, most all of them, or not hardly any of them, have a team of folks like we have here in our city. And that's something that we should be proud about collectively here in Louisville. That certainly doesn't mean the job is done, but it means we got folks that are always willing to say, okay, here's what we can do better. And we've got a lot of passionate advocates for homeless here in our community as well. Sometimes we hear them more loudly than other times, but I want to thank them also for speaking up when we can do better. A lot of the issues around we're talking about with our homeless community were precipitated by the clearing out of the homeless camp at around 12th Street in Portland in October. And I want to thank everybody that has said, hey, this did not work out the way our cleanups typically work out. What happened? What is it that we can do better? I think when we share those concerns and we talk about those concerns, we become better as a city together. Because the values that we espouse, that we have, should be reflected in all of the interactions that we have with our citizens, and particularly amongst our most vulnerable citizens. Because for all kinds of reasons, but one, if the trend, and I'll talk about a little bit, but if the trend that we're seeing starting to take place with the federal government services and state government services continues, our most vulnerable citizens are going to be even in a tougher spot than they are right now. When you talk about our team with homelessness, our LMPD officers, our public works professionals, the coalition for the homeless, everybody involved, all the folks up here on the stage, I think have a good record, a very good record of showing tremendous compassion for the citizens living in our homeless camps. And about the cleanup efforts, There have been some occasions when we have not lived up to our standards, and there are a few occasions when they happen because of a property where a campsite is being developed, but the vast majority are on private property, but the vast majority of these cleanups happen for public safety and public health reasons. I think everybody knows we're having a hepatitis A outbreak in the community. So conditions in these camps are sometimes unsafe and unsanitary. So hepatitis A outbreak amongst our homeless population is vastly, vastly disproportionately high, and can lead not to just an individual health crisis, but to a public health crisis as well. So when people are saying, you know, should we clean a camp out? Is that the compassionate thing to do? Well, is it a compassionate thing to do for a camp to be a breeding ground for hepatitis A? Those are the type of trade-offs that you've got to make in this work. In some cases, our police officers will clear a camp with public works, and we know our homeless population will move back in after the camp is cleaned out. But we know that the camp needs to be clean, again, to combat some of the public health issues that we've talked about. All that being said, we can always be better, and we have adjustments to make. I'm really appreciate Councilman Hollander here. Bill Hollander is standing back here in a suit that he's got on today, looking good. Councilman Hollander has been such a great voice for so many things in our community, from whether it's business development or social justice. But I'm really pleased to see the ordinance that he has put in place on the homeless protection ordinance, and trust the council will work it and improve it any way that they can, and I would really look forward to signing that into law when that is completed. This ordinance would mandate 21-day notices before clearing out homeless encampments, along with other procedures that will help us moving forward to make sure everybody knows what's going to be taking place, so that we can have casework ready. And when you talk to many of the challenges that we have, it's just we've got some folks that are struggling to get the kind of casework that will, we hope, improve their lives. And in many cases, as we know, some of our homeless folks hesitate to interact with our caseworkers and public health professionals, and that presents a challenge to us as well. But the more things that we can do to improve anybody's lives in our community, we're going to do that. So we'll hear from Bill Hollander in a moment, but right now I just want to say thank you, Councilman, for your compassionate leadership on this issue. Good job. Let's give him a round of applause. Also, we're just going to let everybody know here today that we're not going to be clearing out homeless encampments in the next few weeks until after this ordinance passes and updated procedures are in place. There were two points of view on this. You know, the holidays are coming up. It's not a good time to clear out camps. Other people are saying camp's unsanitary. Shouldn't we clean out the camp? So there's not going to be any clearing out of the encampments until sometime here in January, once this ordinance gets through. And there's more. The way we take on challenges, from economic development to public safety to sustainability, is to bring people who have different perspectives together around a common purpose. And that's why I'd like to announce the creation of our Homeless Encampment Task Force that will be kicking off. It includes representatives from the Coalition for the Homeless, St. John's Center, LMPD, Metro Corrections, and our Office for Resilience and Community Services. This task force will be reviewing our procedures and determine if there are better ways to serve our homeless citizens. We work together all the time, but this is going to more formally put us together around this particular issue. And so their work that will come out of this task force, I'm sure, is going to help to reduce homelessness in our community. I think everybody knows how serious we've taken the homelessness issue in our community. Just to remind you, if you have forgotten, the Long-Term Housing Division of Louisville Metro Government's Resilience and Community Services subsidizes housing and provides case management for over 400 citizens who used to be homeless. There's about $8 million a year in total from federal, state, and local money that's spent in homelessness services. In 2014, I joined mayors across America in signing the Mayor's Challenge to End Veteran Homelessness. It was a challenge issued by the Obama White House. We worked with the Coalition for the Homeless, and most of these folks behind me right now, and other agencies. We identified our homeless veteran population at about 360, and the goal was to achieve functional zero amongst veterans homelessness as soon as possible. And we were one of the first cities in the country to achieve that, and now we have procedures in place to house homeless veterans as soon as we identify them and remain at functional zero for homeless veterans. Now I want to emphasize the reason why we were able to do this. One is we got a great group of people right here. But number two, the federal government provided housing vouchers as well. So we can have all the best intentions in the world, but if we don't have financial resources behind what we're doing, we're not going to get the results that we need. So when you're talking to your federal representatives, your state representatives, advocate for these dollars and advocate for these resources. All of these things end up trickling down to our city because this is where people live, in cities. But largely they are unfunded mandates that we are left to work to deal with the much smaller budget that we have and relying on charity of people financially and the good work from volunteers as well. So you got to be loud on these issues to make sure our federal government knows it's a priority. I'm particularly concerned about it right now with this so-called tax reform that's taking place in Washington, which will be resulting in much less money, service money, coming down into the city level. On August 1st of this year, is another example, the Coalition for the Homeless and a team of local service providers and community leaders launched the 100-Day Challenge. The goal was to house at least 100 homeless youth and young adults in our city by November 8th. These young folks are particularly amongst our most vulnerable population when you're homeless, when you're young. We came together and exceeded this goal together, housing 115 youth within 100 days. So when people are being critical about what we're doing, please remind them this is a city that cares. These are people that care. And let's say, here's how we're going to work together. We got a guy here, Jay Alexander, right now. We were hanging out on Saturday. Where are you, Jay? Jay is a professional barber here in the city after having a career as a paralegal. He takes his team out to homeless camps and says, anybody need a haircut? Nobody knew you were doing that. You know, he's just doing it because he and his team are good folks. We got a lot of people like that in our community. So we got a lot of compassionate city here and the people of Louisville. I want to recognize that every human being who finds themselves living on our streets, they all have their own stories. And sometimes they're very complicated stories, as you guys well know. But everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect and compassion, and have a city do everything that we can possibly do to help them get the resources that they need within the constraints that we have. I just want to say, I know I'm talking about compassion here a lot, but I want to say, to us, compassion is an action word. Okay, it's not just, oh, I feel sorry for those folks. It's like, what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it as well? So that's our goal, and we're going to keep working and keep learning so we can make that a reality for our citizens. One more thing I want to talk about here is kind of where we're at. It's really impressive to know how much people in Louisville care about our homeless citizens, and I really appreciate that devotion and the investment and the compassion that people put into this. And the truth is that we need to ask everyone to keep showing and demonstrating how much they care about this issue. Because as I mentioned, our city is facing serious reductions in the state and federal funding that has helped us achieve the success that we've had thus far in helping our homeless citizens get the help they need. And it's not been adequate, what we've done so far. So when we read about these things with tax reform at the federal level, and the need to meet our pension obligation, which we do. Understand that means that dollars either aren't coming here or we have to divert by law our dollars into other issues. So this is not going to get easier. Metro is going to be facing budgetary pressures because of the pension crisis. But our commitment to end homelessness in Louisville remains strong. But the fact is we're going to be working with fewer financial resources than what we have had before, unless our citizens stand up and say, here's more resources, or we demand more resources be put to use. So that most likely what this means is we need our citizens and private sector organizations to A, continue the good work we're doing, but then broaden the team, find more people to step out and help even more. So for folks that are volunteering time and donating funds to help the homeless, please help us more. We've got great organizations that you can trust with your money and your time. The Coalition for the Homeless, under the leadership of Natalie Harris, is a tremendous partner to our city. They work with numerous organizations that help our homeless population, and any city in America would love to have the capability and teamwork of our Coalition for the Homeless. The facts are most every city does not. So if you want to help, and I hope all you guys will tell your producers to put this on your scroller, go to louhomeless.org, louhomeless.org. It's a great place to start. And to our print and digital media here in the front row, if you guys could help us get out this word as well, we'd appreciate your all's help. So in Louisville, we do our best work when we work together. So I'm asking everybody not just to come together during the holidays here and beyond, but do what you can do to help homeless Louisvillians get all the help they need 365 days a year in our city as well. So now we're going to hear from Natalie Harris from the Coalition for the Homeless, who is going to share a few words with us and point out how more people can help us in more ways. Natalie?
So I didn't come very prepared, but it's an easy ask for me to speak today. My name is Natalie Harris. I'm with the Coalition for the Homeless. And what I mostly want to say today is thank you. I don't know how many people were aware of the issue that we have of homeless people sleeping in camps throughout our city and concerns that had been raised about those camps. But I want to thank our mayor for trying to figure out a way around having to move those people from location to location on a short-term basis as we're trying to figure this out. And there are a bunch of other people that have been working really hard to solve this short-term problem. I want to thank our police department, especially Lieutenant Felty, who on his own reached out to try to find out who are the people who care about the homeless in our city, and he created a list that he is now contacting so that people know when a camp is going to be moved, or if there are other concerns at the camp that those people need to know who are going out and serving the homeless. And I don't know if there is anything like this in any other city, but Louisville has a group of people who on their own go out into our community and feed and clothe and check on and know by name our homeless citizens. And so this past weekend, as a thank you to the mayor and those who helped make this decision, a bunch of those volunteers went out to make sure that there wasn't a need to have to move any of the homeless camps that had been cited for removal this week. And I especially want to thank Paul at Exit Zero because other people came out, but he also brought a group with him. He didn't come in one, he came in a group. And they were able to clean out the camps in 2 hours. It's amazing that somebody would do that and commit that on their own personal time. I also want to thank those who are thinking about the long-term solution. And the reality is that until we can figure out how to get more affordable housing in our community and more safe shelter and alternatives for people to be in until they can get into that housing, we're in trouble. We have citizens that are sleeping on the street. And so we have a couple of council members here who've been not only working on the short term, I will say Councilwoman Sexton Smith was on the email email yesterday to Public Works and got them out on a Sunday to clean up all the trash, or to pick up all that trash that we were talking about. But she and our Councilman Bill Hollander also have worked together on getting more affordable housing set-asides, working on getting funding for Louisville Forward and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and other affordable housing options. So I thank those who are around here in this room and elsewhere who are working on both the short-term problem and the long-term problem of homelessness, and thank you for this opportunity.
Let's give her a round of applause there. That's right. Yep. Okay. Okay, Gina Redmond from our Office for Community Services is going to share some thoughts with us.
Thank you.
Actually, get us both. Okay.
You get Gina Redmond. I'm the Director of the Office of Resilience and Community Services.
And I'm Eric Friedland. I'm the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Louisville.
We're excited to be able to just speak to this because it is very near and dear to our hearts. One of the things or the challenges that we have at the Office of Resilience and Community Services is to help all residents who are in a crisis situation. So one of the things that when we heard about the 12th Street Camp, that convening, we did that convening. We made it happen on November the 14th. Got a lot of the individuals that's in this room there together. We talked about what happened and how can we put processes in place to make sure that that does not happen again. We've had another convening since then, and that was on Friday actually, December the 15th, so that we can continue to talk about strategies around our homeless individuals. So we're really excited about the opportunity. We see nothing but opportunity. I look for solutions. I don't believe in the blame game, but I do believe in finding solutions to help those who are most vulnerable in our community.
And so when we come together, and we talked on Friday, and we have a way that we want to start talking about moving forward. The mayor is known as a data geek, so one of the first things we talked about was how we share data and how we share data better among the coalition, LMPD, corrections, public health. We have a lot of information, and we need to make sure that we have that information so that we know people by name. And so that when our outreach occurs and when we go into camps to try to connect people to services, which is what we need to do, we actually know the individual, and it's not just a cold, we're from the government and we're here to help. That usually doesn't go so well. But also from the service agencies. You all have done a tremendous job in partnering with us, and we thank you very much, so that we can actually look at camps and look at individuals. Then we were going to talk about some longer term things. What are some options for the city and for Louisville as we look at what are possibilities and what are other cities doing to try to address some of the issues and some of the temporary housing issues and temporary shelter issues that many cities have. So what is the compassionate way? What is the best way for us to look at how we move forward? Folks, I think there was a Leo column about, do we do temporary tents? How do we have bathroom facilities or someplace where folks can clean up? So those are all important things that we have to think through, because while we're not San Diego and water freezes, how do we figure out how to get that done for the city of Louisville in a way that's most compassionate and most forward-thinking and most progressive? So that's what we are trying to do. And we will be challenged moving forward. There's no question about that. But we'll be challenged together, and it is always, it is a wonderful thing to be working in Louisville because we all work together so well, and I appreciate it so very much.
Thank you.
I want to recognize Vincent James, who's here. Vincent James heads our community building operation. Our public health and wellness department is part of that. So Dr. Sarah Moyer, who runs that, does a great job, is going to talk to us a little bit about hepatitis A, and particularly how that's a challenge for us with our homeless camps. Dr. Moyer?
So thank you, and thank you to the mayor for bringing us together today. I just want to say, yes, we are in the middle of a hepatitis A outbreak among the homeless and people who use drugs populations in our community. And thanks to the people behind us, we've been able to get over 900 vaccines out to those high-risk populations in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And so couldn't have done it without them, so wanted to thank them very much. And we are working hard in order to get the vaccine, which is super effective to those high-risk populations. Those of you who are in contact with them, we are also recommending the hepatitis A vaccine that you can get from your pharmacy. The Kroger Minute Clinics have it on stock. Your insurance, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, should cover it 100% with no deductible, and you can also get it from your primary care physician. So we're just encouraging anyone who's in those two high-risk populations to definitely get vaccinated, and those of you who are in direct contact as well. It is a like hand-to-mouth transmission. Unlike hepatitis B and C, that's usually spread by blood. This one is just like any normal like stomach bug. So wash your hands is really important, which is why we're working on the sanitation issues, and get vaccinated. So thank you.
Okay, we'll be closing now with Councilman. Before I ask him to come up, Councilwoman Barbara Sexton Smith was recognized earlier. She is in the 4th District, and many of these camps are in your district. So this is an issue that's right in her wheelhouse and very personal to her as well, as many of our council folks. Councilman Bill Hollander has come up with the ordinance, as I mentioned, and he will now share some of the salient points about that. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here today. The ordinance was a pretty simple call for me. We didn't do in the Portland case what we normally do, and so codifying what we normally do, which is to provide notice that an area is going to be cleaned, not just the 21-day notice, but also a 3-day notice before the area is actually cleaned, so that social service providers can be on site and lend whatever assistance they can. Seems to me to be very important. I think it seems that way to a number of my colleagues, and I hope that we can get that passed early in next year. I'll just echo what the mayor said about the advocates who are up here and the people who are really working every day in the field. I've been engaged with them in the last few weeks more than I had previously, and the rallying around when there's a call to action, the impassioned discussion about what is the best thing to do. We talked about tents and tent location. There's not consensus among people that that's the most compassionate or best thing to do. And so I think a task force to really help us figure out what it is that's best to do is important. I also want to say about affordable housing and echo what Natalie said about affordable housing in general. We have appropriated $30 million, almost $30 million of local money in the last 3 years for affordable housing. So we are making an effort in this community that we have not made in the past. I think we need to make certain that those efforts are helping everyone, including our most vulnerable people, and I look forward to continuing to work on that and continuing that level of appropriation. Thank you. And I, of course, appreciate the support for the ordinance.
Yes, and I want to say as a colleague of Councilman Bill Hollander how much I appreciate the work that he has done, because as Mayor Fischer said, the majority of the homeless camps in Jefferson County are located in District 4, and I too know all too well the names of many of those folks. Our homeless neighbors are just as equally important as each and one of us who has the opportunity to live in a house. And as I look out, I see John Carter here representing, I'm assuming, Green Street Baptist Church. And Councilman Hollander, I think our faith community has been playing a great role, and our faith community can continue to play a very important role. There were 2 churches, including Green Street Baptist Church and the Plymouth Settlement community, that reached out to me immediately following the story that was written in the Courier-Journal, and they said, what can we do to help? And the first call was to the American Red Cross, who has not been mentioned yet today. And when we think about our local American Red Cross, we think about disaster relief. But when I spoke with the president and CEO, Jennifer Adrio, she immediately understood the challenge, and she offered, and she said I could share with you, that the American Red Cross here locally is willing to provide beds and blankets to folks who can qualify, especially for white flag shelters, and meet those requirements. So I'm going to ask anyone who's listening and out there to please contact Natalie Harris if you have questions about how you might set up a place, if you want to start providing shelter. And we cannot say enough about Executive Director Keith Hackett over Solid Waste Management Services, who has joined us today. It was Mr. Hackett who yesterday called out the trucks and went and helped to pick up the trash on a Sunday afternoon. So if you're out there and you're frustrated and you're listening and you want someone to do something about those homeless folks, join us. Join us. Call anyone standing up here and join the effort to provide shelter for the homeless, to clothe the naked, and feed the hungry. That's part of the Great Commission. So thank you, Councilman Hollander, for your great work.
Okay, well, I hope everybody sees that we've got a good team that's been doing good work, but we want to make this work even better. So we'll wrap it up here, and if there's any individual questions from the media, we'll take those off microphone, okay? All right, thanks, everybody. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
This has been a Metro TV production, a public service of Louisville Metro government.